Alright, so example 9. We're going to solve cosine of 6x minus cosine of 3x equals 0. The first thing I notice is I have a cosine minus a cosine, right? So looking at the previous formulas, I see that cosine of u minus cosine of v is equal to negative 2 sine of u plus v over 2 times sine of u minus v over 2. Yeah, it's a negative 2. I am using the very bottom one. Cosine of u minus cosine of v.
We're going to have to do a plate in calculus, AP calculus.
I don't think so.
No plate?
Alright, so remember, here's my u. This is my v. So we get negative 2 sine of u plus v. So sine of 6x plus 3x over 2. Sine of u minus v, so 6x minus 3x over 2 equals 0. Reduce your fractions.
Why did you write that weird minus sign? Is that plus right there? Did you change it?
This one?
Yeah, that's plus.
Yeah, it's a plus. Just part of it must not have shown very much. Sorry. Gentlemen, y'all paying attention?
Yes,
ma'am. All right, so what can I do now?
Can you do the half things?
Well, I could, but I think there's something easier. Because what's going on between the negative 2, the sign, and the other sign?
Oh, factor out a sign.
Well, not factor. How many terms are up there?
2.
1. There's no plus or minus sign in between the negative 2, the sign, or the sign, right? So that's just one term. So that's a bunch of things being multiplied, isn't it? And remember, when you have things being multiplied and it's set equal to 0, you can set them individually equal to 0. So I'm going to set that negative 2 equal to 0, which I know doesn't make sense, and we're going to end up throwing it out. Then I'm going to set sine of 9x over 2 equal to 0. And I've got sine of 3x over 2 equals 0. Now, we did this before, back before the last test, where when you had multiple angles and different things like that, you're able to, remember if I told you, I guess what I'm trying to say is if I told you that sine of x equaled 0, you'd tell me x is equal to what?
Sine of 0. X equals 0.
Sine of x equals 0. So
Sine would be
equals
pi over 2, or, wait, no, I'm just kidding. 0 or pi, correct?
Oh.
Alright, but now I don't just have an x I'm taking the sine of. I'm taking sine of 9x over 2. So this tells me then that 9x over 2 is going to equal that 0. And 9x over 2 is going to equal pi. Same thing for the second piece here. Don't box those yet. Those aren't final answers. So 3x over 2 is going to equal to, it's the same thing. It's equal to 0, so it's going to equal to 0. And 3x over 2 is going to be equal to pi. First, am I restricted?
No.
No. So what do I have to put at the end of them?
Plus 2 pi.
Plus 2 pi n. But what do we know about 0 and pi on our unit circle?
They're pi apart.
They're straight across from each other, aren't they? 0's over here, and pi is over here. So I don't actually have to put the second one, because what can I put in the first one? Plus pi n. Alright. So I've got, just bringing this down here, I've got 9x over 2 equals, can I reduce 0 plus pi n? What is that?
Pi.
Pi n. And bringing this one down, I've got 3x over 2 is equal to pi n. So let's solve for x. How are we going to solve for x? Multiply both sides by 2. So we get 9x equals 2 pi n. And divide by 9. So we get x equals 2 pi n over 9. Okay, same steps for the other one. So multiply by 2. So we get 3x equals 2 pi n. Divide by 3. And you get x equals 2 pi n over 3. Now both of those are acceptable answers, but 9 is a multiple of 3, isn't it? Which one of those is smaller? I guess I should ask. Divided by 9 or divided by 3? Divided by 9. So since 9 is a multiple of 3, that means every third one of this one here, I'm going to land on the other one. Does that make sense? Every third one of the first one, I land on the other one. So I only have to put the first one as my answer because it's going to land on the second one as I'm going around. So it covers it. If you don't see it, you could put them both as your answer, okay? It's still correct, but this is just simplified using the first one. Because what that means is, think about it. If I have, I'm just going to do it as a straight line. All right, I have 18 lines up there, okay? So if I split it by 9, that means every 2 is going to count, correct?
Right.
So that would be my ninths, if I divide it by 9. If I divide it by 3, divide it into thirds, that means that it's 18 of them, so divide that by 3, that means every 6 lines is going to count, correct? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see, so when I did it by the thirds, I only got 3 lines. When I did it by the ninths, I had 9 lines. Okay? That makes sense. Anyways, but my lines where I did the thirds was on top of where I did my ninths. Okay? So by using the one with the ninth, I'm covering the one with the third. Is it making any sense? Some of y'all, yes. Some of y'all are just looking at each other and making faces. So
Would it be wrong if we wrote both answers?
you could write both answers. But it's just a simplified version.
Is that weird dash
So are we